In the frigid darkness of the Andromeda 7 galaxy, where starlight flickers as feeble embers amidst the boundless void, a chilling tale began to spread. It wasn't the rumors of war survivors or the lamentations of ravaged planets, but something else, a sharp, icy whisper, slicing through the night like a blade, making even the most ruthless tremble. This was the story of the executioner, a phantom without name, face, or origin, yet wielding a power that sent shivers through the cosmos itself. Picture this: mighty warlords, who once trampled billions of lives to forge their empires, now cowering within their fortresses, awaiting an inescapable doom. Do you dare listen to this tale to its end? Thousands of years ago, the Andromeda 7 galaxy fell under the iron grip of the High Council, a coalition of 12 warlords, each a living embodiment of absolute power and unrelenting cruelty. These were no ordinary beings. They were the products of centuries of bioengineering and technological augmentation, their bodies a fusion of flesh and cold metal. Their skin was replaced with bulletproof alloys, their blood pumped through ceaseless artificial veins, and their minds linked to artificial intelligence systems, enabling them to process information at speeds surpassing any living creature. Zorith, the Council's leader, known as the Planet Render, wielded a mechanical arm capable of shattering an asteroid's crust with a single swing. Clysera, the female warlord ruling the southern frontier, commanded her armies with neural waves, directing millions of soldiers with a mere thought. Vorten, with his colossal mechanized legion, could reduce an entire star system to ashes just to test a new weapon. They were not mere conquerors, they were self-proclaimed gods, claiming the right to dictate the fate of the galaxy. The Council's strength lay not only in themselves but in the tools of destruction they forged. Their fleets comprised thousands of warships, each at least 5 kilometers long, armed with plasma energy cannons that could pierce hundreds of meters of armor in an instant. These ships were more than war machines. They were symbols of oppression. When they loomed over a planet's sky, they blotted out the light, casting a shadow that foretold annihilation. Their mechanized warriors, towering 15 meters high, were programmed to know neither fear nor fatigue, their arms fitted with plasma blades that could cleave a building in two with one strike. These machines needed no food, no rest, just a single command: destroy all that stood in their way. Beyond that, the warlords controlled networks of automated bombardment satellites, encircling their key planets like an impenetrable steel web, primed to fire at the slightest hint of defiance. No civilization in Andromeda 7 could withstand this might. Ancient empires, once proud of technological feats beyond imagination, were crushed without mercy. Take the Cerathian Empire, for instance, a civilization spanning 10,000 years with a fleet of 800 superspeed spacecraft that dared to challenge the Council in a war lasting 3 decades. The outcome? Their homeworld was reduced to a fireball, and survivors were enslaved, forced to mine the wreckage of their own planet for their conquerors. Gargantuan void-dwelling creatures, like the Leviathan monsters hundreds of kilometers long that fed on stellar energy, met the same fate. Zorith personally led a hunt, deploying quantum nuclear weapons to eradicate them, their bones repurposed as building materials for fortresses. Even self-proclaimed invincible artificial intelligences, such as the Vinex 9 supercomputer that once ruled 50 star systems, were hacked and reprogrammed by the Council, turned into tools for their expansion. The Council didn't just conquer through force, they sustained their rule with fear and despair. They transformed planets into vast mining operations, draining resources until only hollow shells drifted in space. Dravis, once a lush world with sprawling oceans, was stripped bare of water, its people dying slowly under a scorching sun no longer shielded by an atmosphere. Survivors were shackled with energy chains, forced to toil 20 hours a day to erect towering monuments honoring the warlords. One infamous structure, the Zorith Pinnacle on Nexus, stood 3 kilometers tall, crafted from the bones of millions of victims, a stark reminder that resistance was futile. Any spark of rebellion was extinguished with a brutality so efficient it bordered on artistry. When the people of Koran staged a small uprising in hopes of freedom, Clysera unleashed 10,000 mechanized warriors onto the surface. Within 48 hours, all 15 million inhabitants were wiped out, their cities leveled, their ashes scattered into the sky as a warning mist. Those who survived such massacres were often sent to soul-forged ships, spaceborne prisons where neural waves tortured their minds to breaking before their bodies gave out. The Council didn't just aim to kill their enemies, they sought to erase the very concept of defiance from the minds of the living. The High Council believed they were the galaxy's destiny, the endpoint of all evolution and power. They saw themselves not just as invincible but untouchable, transcending morality or limitation. They scoffed at resistance, dismissing it as the jest of weaklings who couldn't grasp the natural order they'd imposed. To them, Andromeda 7 wasn't a tapestry of diverse civilizations but a chessboard, with them as the sole players moving the pieces. They had exterminated hundreds of species, razed thousands of planets, and turned billions into tools of their ambition without a backward glance. For them, domination wasn't a choice, it was an inherent right, cemented by a power no one could challenge. The High Council's reign seemed eternal until a faint crack appeared in their perfect dominion. It didn't begin with the roar of war or the blinding flash of energy cannons, but with silence, a cold, profound silence, as if the void itself whispered a warning. It started in the Carvox system, a remote frontier outpost where Zorith, the planet render, ruled like an immortal deity. One of the Council's mightiest, he governed 87 planets with an iron fist, backed by a fleet of 300 advanced warships, each powered by a nuclear reactor core capable of obliterating a moon in minutes. His central stronghold, the Tower of Ruin, was a technological marvel, 12 kilometers tall, encased in 18 rotating energy shields, and guarded by 50,000 tireless mechanized warriors. No one, not even fellow Council warlords, dared challenge him. Yet, on a fateful day, all communication from Carvox abruptly ceased. No distress signals, no reports of an assault, no debris from Zorith's fleet floated in space. When a scouting team arrived, they found only absolute emptiness. The Tower of Ruin stood intact, but lifeless within. The giant mechanized warriors, once the terror of millions, stood frozen like metal statues, their electronic eyes dark, as if their artificial souls had been drained. Advanced surveillance systems, thousands of quantum cameras and motion sensors recorded nothing unusual. Only one odd detail emerged. On Zorith's main control console, a scorched handprint was seared deep into the metal, as if someone had crushed it with unimaginable force. In their arrogance, the High Council dismissed it as internal betrayal or a technical glitch. They couldn't fathom that something powerful enough to erase Zorith without a trace lurked among them. But the silence didn't end there. Months later, Clysra, the ruthless warlord of the southern frontier, vanished under similar circumstances. A brilliant strategist and master of mind control, she wielded neural wave technology to command her forces across millions of kilometers. Her fleet of over 500 warships and 10,000 drones, equipped with advanced stealth systems rendering them nearly invisible to enemy radar, was unmatched. Her stronghold on the icy planet Sirith was encircled by an artificial plasma storm, strong enough to incinerate intruders before they could approach. Yet, when the Council's patrol reached Sirith, they found her fleet adrift in space, intact but devoid of life. The drones hung in hibernation, the massive ships silent, their engines cold. In Clysra's command chamber, a brief recording was recovered, her trembling voice cutting through static. He came from the dark. No sound, no form, only death. It ended in a choked scream, followed by a haunting stillness. The warlords' disappearances were no longer isolated incidents. Vorten, who commanded the galaxy's largest mechanized army, over 1 million warriors armed with plasma blades and nuclear-resistant armor, vanished with his elite guard in a single night. The space station, a colossal floating fortress 50 kilometers wide, was found frozen, every system shut down instantly. Xylaris, cloaked behind an automated bombardment network of 300 satellites programmed to annihilate anything lacking Council clearance, fared no better. His defenses went offline without warning. Investigators found his planet shrouded in darkness, satellites drifting like cosmic junk, his central stronghold empty, no signs of struggle. Rumors began to spread, from the underground slums of slave planets to distant space stations where traders gathered. The people whispered of a vengeful phantom, an unseen, unstoppable entity hunting the High Council one by one. Some believed it was an ancient weapon, forgotten from intergalactic wars, programmed to eliminate tyrants. Others speculated it was the spirit of an extinct race, bearing a final curse against the Warlords' cruelty. But no solid proof existed, just fragmented data, garbled signals, and horrific tales from those lucky enough to survive the silence enveloping abandoned strongholds. The Council tried to suppress these rumors, branding them weaklings' tricks to incite rebellion. They intensified their crackdowns, executing anyone who dared mention the Phantom or question the Warlords' vanishings. But the truth couldn't be buried forever. When the Valdar system, the Council's headquarters, began broadcasting intermittent distress calls before going completely silent, raw fear erupted. Those who once mocked the idea of a threat now eyed each other with suspicion, hands gripping weapons, awaiting the moment they might become the next target. Unbeknownst to them, in the galaxy's shadows, a pair of human eyes watched, patient, cold, and ready to strike without warning. As whispers in the void grew louder, Andromeda 7 trembled before a truth none dared believe. The entity erasing the galaxy's mightiest warlords was no advanced war machine or alien with supernatural might. It was a human, a species the High Council had long scorned as dust beneath their boots. In the Warlords' memory, humans were frail creatures, hunted to near extinction in territorial wars millennia ago, cast into mines, enslaved, or wiped out in merciless purges. Their resilience was mocked as the folly of the weak. The Council believed no human could survive their brutality, let alone threaten the grand empire they'd built. Yet now, from the ashes of the past, a lone figure had risen, bringing a nightmare even the immortal couldn't escape. Tales of the executioner spread like a smoldering flame across slave planets and forgotten space stations. Some dubbed him the Silent Reaper, leaving nothing but absolute emptiness where warlords once reigned. Others murmured he was the result of a failed experiment, a human augmented with technology beyond the Council's grasp, programmed to avenge his kind. But as scattered fragments of data, cracked codes, and broken recordings pieced together, the truth emerged. The executioner acted not for wealth, power, or glory. He left no messages, sought no negotiations, issued no warnings. He simply killed with cold precision and ruthless efficiency, as if eliminating warlords was just another task on his list. Tarkhan, one of the rare survivors of an encounter with the executioner, left a recording before vanishing forever. A veteran warrior who'd raised hundreds of planets, Tarkhan's body was enhanced with nuclear-resistant alloys and an artificial nervous system 10 times faster than any organic beings. Protected by 200 elite guards, each a 10-meter killing machine, and a floating fortress armed with energy cannons that could pierce a warship's hull instantly, he seemed untouchable. Yet, in his final recording, his voice quavered through static. He has no shape, no sound. Only eyes, human eyes, blazing like fire in the dark. I ordered them to fire hundreds of plasma rounds, but he didn't fall. He walked through my armor like it was air, and then everything went black. Tarkhan's last scream was stifled by static, followed by a silence the Council couldn't deny. The executioner's difference lay not just in his methods, but in his utter detachment. He showed no anger, no personal vendetta, no victory cries. When Dralik, the warlord with the galaxy's largest drone fleet, was erased, not one of his 20,000 drones lifted off. They were found neatly arrayed in storage, untouched, while his fortress crumbled from within. No explosions, no conflict. This baffled the Council. They'd faced savage foes, massive armies, and weapons that could shatter star systems, but never an enemy who ignored the rules of war they'd defined. Some warlords tried to explain him. Before vanishing, Zorith ordered analyses of early attacks, concluding he might be a human veteran, augmented by an extinct civilization for revenge. In her final days, Clysra sent an encrypted warning of a living weapon undetectable by their tech. But these theories collapsed. No evidence showed the executioner used advanced gear or conventional arms. He needed no plasma guns, no nuclear bombs, no warships. He appeared, completed his task, and vanished as if his very existence was a weapon beyond the Council's comprehension. His emergence marked a turning point in Andromeda 7's history. Those who deemed themselves invincible now lived in unprecedented fear. They bolstered defenses, ordered millions of mechanized warriors to patrol ceaselessly, and activated cutting-edge spatial scanners to track him. But all efforts failed. He stayed a step ahead, as if privy to their every plan. When Cyric the last to confront him directly vanished from a fortress ringed by 100 warships and 10,000 guards, the Council faced a horrifying truth. They were no longer hunters. They were prey, and the executioner alone human wielded the scythe of their fate. Panic swept through the Council's ranks. The remaining warlords Tarkon, Mares, Dralek, and Cyric refused to believe a solitary figure could shake their empire. They rallied their full might, an unprecedented military force in Andromeda 7's history. Over 2 million warships, each armed with plasma cannons that could pierce kilometer-thick armor. Billions of 15-meter mechanized warriors with energy blades capable of splitting small planets. And a fortress network spanning 50 star systems, shielded by energy barriers and automated bombardment satellites. They turned the Valdar system, the Council's power hub, into a colossal trap, an impregnable stronghold designed to crush any threat that dared approach. Valdar was more than a system, it was the emblem of absolute rule. Its main planet encircled by 500 orbital satellites, each laden with energy mines that could erase a fleet in a blink. Beneath the surface, bunkers hundreds of kilometers deep housed millions of mechanized warriors and automated defenses programmed to react to any anomaly within thousands of kilometers. The warlords believed this would be the final battlefield, where they'd crush the executioner and restore galactic order. They deployed stealth warship patrols, sent thousands of drones to scour every corner of the system, and activated quantum scanners capable of detecting the tiniest particles in the void. Tarkon, his voice icy over comms, declared, "He's just a human, a frail creature of flesh and bone. We'll blast him to ash before he sets foot in Valdar." Mares, who'd built nuclear-resistant fortresses, scoffed at the notion that a fleetless foe could breach their defenses. Dralek, with his vast drone army, ordered a dense laser grid to envelop the system, ensuring no speck of dust could slip through undetected. They were certain that, no matter his strength, the executioner couldn't overcome their combined might. But they were wrong, catastrophically so. A week after Valdar became an unbreakable bastion, all contact with the system ceased. No distress calls, no battle reports, no explosions echoed in space. When a scouting team arrived, they beheld a nightmare. 500 orbital satellites drifted aimlessly, their energy cores drained as if switched off. Millions of energy mines hung dormant, none detonated, and the 2 million-strong fleet stood frozen in the void, engines cold, lifeless. On Valdar's main planet, the fortresses remained intact, no cracks, no scorch marks, but inside was utter emptiness. Billions of mechanized warriors, once the galaxy's terror, stood like statues, their electronic eyes dark, artificial souls snuffed out in an instant. All 9 remaining Council warlords Tarkon, Mares, Dralek, Cyric, and others had vanished, leaving no clue to their fate. There was no battle, no gunfire, no resistance. The war the Council prepared with all their military might, advanced tech, and arrogance ended before it began. The executioner didn't need a frontal assault, didn't need to demolish fortresses or fleets. He silently breached the strongest defenses, neutralizing them in ways none could grasp, and claimed the lives of those who thought themselves invincible. A single recording surfaced from Valder's ruins, Siric's voice desperate. "He's here. In the dark. We can't see him. But he sees us. It's over." It cut off mid-sentence, followed by a silence more terrifying than any war's roar. Andromeda. 7 witnessed the fall of an impregnable empire. The colossal fleets, once symbols of absolute power, drifted aimlessly, leaderless. Fortresses built to repel thousands of invaders became hollow tombs, devoid of life. Slave planets, long crushed under the Council's heel, began to rise, shattering chains and reclaiming what was lost. But this liberation came at a cost. Chaos spread as new factions vied for control of the Empire's wreckage. Some hailed the Executioner as a savior, a vengeful spirit freeing them from millennia of darkness. Others feared him, wondering if he'd return to punish any who repeated the Council's mistakes. The war without sound ended, but it left a haunting question. How could a human, a being the Council deemed weak, achieve what millions of armies and millennia of tech couldn't? The Executioner didn't just erase the Warlords. He shattered their myth of invincibility. He needed no proclamations, no battlefield triumphs. He acted in silence, and in that silence, he reshaped the galaxy's fate. The High Council, with all its strength and hubris, fell not because they were feeble, but because they couldn't comprehend their foe, a human bearing humanity's unquenchable fire, a flame no fortress or fleet could extinguish. When the Valdar system, the proud heart of the High Council, fell silent, Andromeda 7 faced an unprecedented crossroads. The Executioner, the lone figure who'd erased the galaxy's mightiest warlords without fleets or weapons of mass destruction, left no explanation or victory cry. He arrived like a chill wind in the void, sweeping away an empire that had reigned for millennia, then vanished as he came silently, mysteriously, without trace. No records showed where he went. No signals marked his departure from Valdar. No clues lingered in the empty fortresses or drifting fleets. He wasn't a hero seeking glory or a conqueror claiming a throne. He was a phantom, and in his silence, he left a mark deeper than any battle in galactic history. His disappearance didn't signal an end, but the dawn of a new era of chaos and uncertainty. The Council's vast fleets, over 2 million warships that once blotted out the skies of hundreds of planets, now floated aimlessly, leaderless. Advanced war machines, once emblems of invincibility, became scrap heaps drifting between systems, scavenged by survivors as relics of a bygone age. Fortresses of alloy walls hundreds of meters thick and energy shields that withstood invasions from thousands of fleets stood still, devoid of light or sound. Billions of mechanized warriors, armed with plasma blades and nuclear-resistant armor, remained in eternal hibernation, their electronic eyes dark like metal graves. The Council's empire, built on the bones and blood of billions, crumbled not in the fires of war, but in the emptiness the Executioner left behind. Yet the Council's collapse didn't bring peace. The galaxy plunged into chaos as new powers rose from the ashes. Slave planets, long oppressed under the Warlords' boots, began to break their chains. On Dravis, stripped dry of water, the people revolted, repurposing the Council's mining machines to rebuild their home. On Quran, where millions perished in purges, survivors seized abandoned armories, declaring independence and vowing never to bow again. But freedom came at a steep price. Without the Council to enforce order, rebel factions, greedy traders, and opportunists battled for dominance. Smaller systems turned into war zones as self-styled leaders scrambled to fill the power vacuum left behind. Amid the chaos, the question of the Executioner haunted all. Where had he gone? Some believed he'd fulfilled his mission, that he was the last human soul, carrying a millennia-old flame of vengeance to destroy those who'd annihilated his kind. They recounted tales of human resilience, stories the council had erased from history of how they defied extinction with unbreakable will, even when hope was lost. To them, the executioner embodied that spirit, proof that humanity was never truly defeated, merely biding its time to rise again. A small group of survivors on Nexus even built a crude monument from recycled metal, inscribed, "The last one stood, and the gods fell." But not all saw him as a savior. Those who'd served the council, surviving generals, fortress engineers, and merchants who'd profited from the warlords' brutality feared him more than anything they'd known. They whispered that he lingered somewhere, hidden in the void, watching the galaxy with humanity's cold eyes. A lone message was found on a council warship fragment near Valder's Edge: "Build no empire on blood and bone. I will return." No one knew who carved it: a freed slave, a desperate survivor, or perhaps the executioner himself, but it was enough to make the boldest hesitate. New leaders, whether rebels or opportunists, acted with unprecedented caution, glancing over their shoulders, fearing a misstep might summon that phantom from the dark. His vanishing didn't diminish his power, it made him a legend. No one knew his true name, saw his face, or understood how he breached the strongest defenses without a trace. He was an unsolvable enigma, a figure transcending every notion of war or power the galaxy had known. In underground slums and far-flung space stations, people retold his story with voices of awe and dread. He needed no army, an old man on Sirith whispered, for he was the army. He needed no weapon, for his will was the weapon. These tales spread, turning the executioner from a man into a symbol, a living warning that no empire, no matter how mighty, could stand if built on cruelty. Andromeda 7 entered a new age, free of the High Council's shadow, yet forever marked by fear of an undying phantom. New leaders, whether seeking peace or power, lived with an inescapable truth: the executioner might be gone, but his footprints remained etched in the dark. One day, if the galaxy fell to new tyrants, if blood and bone became an empire's foundation again, he'd return soundless, unheralded, with humanity's blazing eyes and justice's cold hand. None dared test that theory, for the council had paid for arrogance with total ruin. In the void, the whisper lingered: he was gone, but never truly far away.